Tonight, I'm absolutely thrilled we have a very special guest. He is the host of the Al Nicoletti Show. He is Florida's premier probate attorney, Al Nicoletti.
Michael, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is
Yeah,
great.
we're absolutely thrilled to have you. And if you can just spend a little time and give a probate overview, how we may be able to work with you, if you have any tips on finding probate lead, and of course, share the Al Nicoletti Show. I wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning. I listen to the recordings of the Al Nicoletti Show, and I'm always learning. And again, we're thrilled to have you. Go ahead and take it away, and Louise is going to let you go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, sounds great. Michael, thank you so much for having me on here. I can definitely even show you guys a presentation that I've had in the past that helps you guys have a greater understanding of what goes on in probate. What I'll tell you, just so everybody knows, for those that don't know, my name's Al Nicoletti. I focus on probate real estate in Florida. I'm an attorney. I help a lot of investors, a lot of realtors, a lot of title companies when they get these messy deals and now somebody's got to do probate, or there has to be some kind of situation that's got to be cleared up in the title chain with the probate going on. And so I'm the one doing that. I'm all over social media because there's a lot of things we won't be able to get into, but I'm all over social media and you can find all my stuff there. What I'll do, Michael, is I'll share this presentation with you guys. I'll get it up on the screen. But what I did was I really created kind of an overview of what probate is in the sense of just some of the basic things to look for. And I'll share that with you right here. Can I share my screen? Am I able to?
Yeah, you can. You should be able to.
Okay. So let me go right here. Let me talk about this real quick because a lot of people don't realize the power of what is going on with probate. So a lot of people don't see that where we're headed right now is this time of there is a lot of people that owned real estate. They bought it back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They owned it for years. They wanted to hold on to it eventually for their family. They wanted to build on it. They died. And so a lot of these properties are just sitting out there. And the number of these properties that are just going to pop up, it's going to explode. And I really talk about it with a lot of people. It's just this massive opportunity. So when we talk about probate, and Michael will go back and forth on it, I just want everybody to realize that what you're dealing with here is just a huge, huge opportunity that a lot of investors don't want to go after because they think it's going to take a year, 2 years, 3 years. They've been through nightmares. They've heard nightmares. Or they find out that there's going to be multiple sellers. They hear the probate word. They don't want to do it. But what I can tell you is that by being on the other side of this and doing the lawyer side, I see so many investors making their biggest spreads off probate. So with that in mind, just know that this niche can be a total gold mine for you. Now, let me break down this process because, Michael, this is a great thing for people to understand. Whenever you get into a probate scenario, what a lot of people start thinking about is the death certificate, the will. You really have to start with the title to the property. It always begins with that. So where do you find the title to the property? You can look at the deeds, or if you're already under contract, you're getting with the title company, and the title company is going to generate a report called a title commitment, and that's going to really tell you where it starts, what really is coming up on the property. And what I say is that you're really looking at the root. The deed is your source. That is where it all starts and flows from. And so being able to look at that deed and see who's on it, who's alive, who's deceased is a really good starting point for you. And some people think that if you have 3 people on title and 2 are deceased and 1's alive, that it's all going to go to the 1. It doesn't really work that way. In a general sense, you're going to need 2 probates there. Now, once in a while, a deed comes up that says joint tenants with rights of survivorship or some kind of magic language that would avoid probate. But really, when we're looking at these titles, we're looking at the deed, the root source. So that's the beginning of this. Now, just a little bit of what it is somebody owns real estate, they died. Now, to get the title out of that person's name, we as the attorneys are preparing paperwork that is going to name the person that died, the assets that are a part of this, the beneficiaries, however many properties there are. And we're getting all this paperwork together, signed by the heirs, sent back to us, and then we're filing it in court. And that process is probate. Getting that paperwork in, eventually getting court orders. What we're doing is we're establishing who the heirs are, what the assets are, and getting the court order saying these are the people that are a part of this. That's what we're doing. We are saying these are the true heirs, these are the beneficiaries, these are the people that you're going to need for your contract. These are the people that you're going to need for the title company to sign the documents. And the why is, first thing is in Florida. If I don't know how many people are doing deals in Florida. Just drop a comment. If you're doing Florida deals, drop a comment. Just say Florida. In Florida, Florida is a judicial state. And in Florida, Florida says you have to do probate. So in order to get this done, we got to do this. And the title insurance companies always require this probate to be done. So Michael picks up a deal in Lee County and the person died 20 years ago. You're still going to need to do probate for that person. So we are going through all these procedures and processes. That's really the breakdown of what we're doing. And on another point about breaking down the process, where a lot of investors struggle is, who are we supposed to talk to? So Michael picks up that deal in Lee County. He found that 3-acre lot. He saw that John Smith owned the property, but he looked through the records, or the title company said, hey, we need probate here. And Michael's talking to the brother. And you're wondering, is the brother really the right person that we're supposed to be speaking with? And that's where you got to really unwind this thing, because in Florida, we have all these statutes and crazy things that people have to interpret all the time, all this law. We want to break this down very simply. And really, this tree is really what you're following to break this process down. So one of the first things you're trying to find out in a probate is, did that person have a will or no will? And that's relevant, because if you find out that they had a will, what does it say? Where is it? Does it name people that are getting that lot specifically? I've seen probates where it says that Sue and Johnny are getting the lot in Lehigh, but Mark's getting the one in Marion. So you can't have Mark for that property. Or you find the will and it says it's leaving the lots to everybody. So you need everybody, or maybe one person. You have to find out about that. This is a lot of this process of finding out these things. And I get it. Sellers are going to be a little resistant sometimes talking about it. And when they say, why do we need to talk about the will? Why do we have to? Because it's a part of this process for you to get this done. In order for you to help them, they have to help you figure out what they have. And these are a lot of the things. Now, if they don't have the will, this is where we start going by the statutes. And this is very basic. Like, I've really broken it down there for you instead of reading through the whole thing. But the first thing you always have to find out is, and no, Michael, it's crazy, right? Because I'm sure you've seen it before and it's, what is this? How do you interpret this? First thing you have to do is you have to find out if there's a surviving spouse. There's a pecking order to this. You can't go to cousin and nephew to start. You have to start at the top. And the top, you have the surviving spouse is number one. After that, you have the children ever. See, a lot of investors mess up on this part, because what they'll do is they'll get one heir under contract, find out later there's 6, and now you're missing 5 signatures. So you get into these situations where you really have to know who all the players are in this. So how many children ever? And I always say ever, because for some reason, they don't say it on the first one, but they say it on the second one. And then they tell you that there's all these people. Then if there's none of those, no spouse, no children, no will, you're looking at the parents. So I just had one come up, real story, land. Property's owned by this lady and this guy. The guy died and they weren't married, but they own the lot jointly no magic language. So the title company said, probate for this guy. He died. And so now she wants to sell. But what do they need to do? They got to do probate. So we had to break down the whole tree. Will, no surviving spouse, no children ever. We go up. Parents. Oh, mom's alive. Mom is still alive. Dad predeceased. That's gone, but mom's alive. Now that's who you need. So who do you need? You need lady and mom. And that's what everybody's figuring out right now. So when you're breaking this down, you're trying to figure out who these people are. If you don't get those, you're looking at brothers, sisters ever. I had one today where everybody thought it was going to be one probate. Title commitment says some murky things. And I was like, I think they're calling for another probate here. Who's this person? So we broke it down. We broke down the whole tree. We got all the way down this line, none. We even got to brothers and sisters, and all the brothers and sisters had predeceased the deceased person on title. And so when we get those situations, we're trying to figure out who are their nieces and nephews, who are their children, because those are the nieces and nephews of the deceased. So when you're breaking this down, you're really trying to think through what this chart is. And that's why I love going through this with a lot of people, is because I understand the importance of finding the right person of authority from the beginning instead of swirling throughout the whole thing. So Michael calls me, he says, hey, Alec, I got the nephew. My first thing is, oh boy. But if he says, oh, I got the child, the actual son of the person, I'm like, boom, what do we have here? What's on this? So that's some of the process right there that I could go over. I have a couple other things that I've talked about with people before. Does that help, Michael?
I'll bear with you. Yeah, I think that's great. And I also believe that sometimes we need to figure in the economic to see if the deal makes sense. There just may be too many probates to make it profitable, and it may take too much time.
That's one of the biggest challenges of doing land probate deals is you're snatching it up for 7, you're wholesaling it out for 11, find out it needs 2 probates, pretty much kills the deal. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. But then there's times where there's a property, it's, I don't know, 5 acres, but it's in a great location and builders are willing to pay a lot of money for it. And you're still able to snatch it up for 40, wholesale it out for 140, because the builders know that they're going to build 3 or 4 houses on the lots. So it's worth the money to get into those kinds of deals. Even if you find out it's 4 probates, it still makes sense. So don't pass it up just because it says probate, or don't pass it up because you're not sure of the whole scenario. You never know. It could be one person you're dealing with. It could be 7, but it could be totally worth the deal. So that's huge. I know another thing that you definitely wanted me to cover were lead sources, right? Some of the top leads. I would say, to begin with, for land investors, one of the top lead sources, hot motivated leads I have definitely seen in the last couple of years, are the ones where investors are going after the tax deed auction. For example, Michael finds a property, it's up for tax deed May 15th, and it's in Lee County. He already got in touch with the son. He's the only child ever. They're ready to rock and roll, motivated. But Michael's concerned that there's an auction coming up and the back taxes are $6,000. And he doesn't want to pay the back taxes for $6,000 if the deal is not going to happen in time. You don't want to take that risk. Nobody wants to take that risk. A lot of times what we're seeing is that when investors are finding those, there's a way to create urgency with those in the court system. So the court's aware, hey, there's a potential buyer, there's a looming auction, we got to get this done. And we just had one the other day. Judge signed in 2 days. So we're seeing that these are hot because there's a lot of motivation behind them. They either do something or they don't, and they lose the property. And really, people aren't going to come along and pay off their back taxes willy-nilly for them. So if you can find a way to jump into, that's a hot lead. These are definitely some of the hot leads. So the ones that are heading to auction have been huge. I would say the tax delinquents definitely have been big for a lot of people. There's several properties that I've seen where they're just behind in taxes and they're about to do a notice of tax deed application. So they're really at the stage of they're just so behind in taxes, but you still have time, right? You still have good time before you hit that auction. If you're getting into doing single family homes, same thing with the foreclosure auctions. We've seen these be hot lead sources for a lot of people. Something about them right now just creates a lot of motivation for sellers. Code violation, vacant properties, vacant land. But I think the hottest ones have been the tax delinquent and the tax deed auctions. Those for land, bar none. Those have been huge. And I don't know if you wanted to get into what I'm seeing with marketing channels at all, but you tell me, Michael, we can get into that or we can hop back to leads.
Yeah, well, we just lost one actually. It was going to tax deed sale. We had the son sign the contract with us for $500. We already had an offer for 14,500, except I had just a few days and I just couldn't make it happen. So this is one of the reasons that we're absolutely thrilled that you're here. We can do more deals, make more money, and solve some of those problems that we previously haven't been able to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be so surprised too. A lot of these sellers are, and I hear about it on my end, very surprised when, hey, so-and-so reached out about this property. I never even knew that mom and dad owned this property. What is this property? It's amazing. They don't even know. So the fact that you can jump in and help solve this problem and get some money in their pocket so they don't lose it is an amazing resource to them. Yes, the numbers get really tight. Sometimes the back taxes are $20,000, $25,000. Sometimes the back taxes are $400. There's risk involved with getting into any of it, but you're managing your risk by looking at the numbers and seeing what are you willing to salvage for this kind of deal? Do you want to see if you can get this done beforehand? There's a lot of ways to look at this, but that's why, yeah, Michael, for sure. It's really helps seeing it from my end because you would come to me and say, can we get this done in time? Is it possible, right? If we were in, I'm thinking of a county that would just be a total curveball. If we went to Lake County, I couldn't give you an answer on that, right? No idea what to expect whatsoever. If we went to Palm Beach, who knows? But there's certain counties like Sarasota, Charlotte. I've talked about a lot of the hot counties that a lot of people have been seeing, Lee County, Charlotte County, Sarasota, a lot of land in Polk, a lot of land in Osceola, a lot of land in Brevard and Volusia. And everybody's just seeing a lot of land lots in these areas. Manatee's getting a little bit more popular, but that's what we're seeing. And direct mail has been a huge thing that's worked for a lot of land investors. We're just seeing a lot of investors having success with direct mail, especially for land. A lot of the out-of-state owners, they love that kind of stuff. And they even talk about it too. They're like, oh yeah, I got so-and-so's letter. I was so surprised. I just felt warm and fuzzy when I saw it. And it felt there was some kind of good rapport between the letter and them receiving it. They just felt like there was something there. So we're seeing that a lot too in this world. I will say one thing that I've talked about, Michael, is the checklist. And I think this would be a really good thing for me to talk about too, because a lot of investors want to know what to ask for when they get potential deals, right? When they get a probate, they want to know, what do we ask for? I got to the point in my practice that I got so high volume and we had to create this checklist because we needed to qualify what the situation was. What is exactly happening in this probate, right? And I had to create it to help the investors get the info because if they don't get you the info, they're not serious about getting this done. And so you're weeding out your time. It's a time mechanism. It's freeing up your time. Say, I got 7 deals in the pipeline, 3 and 2, they actually want to get this done. This other one's just taking forever to get us anything and not responding. So we had to definitely create this checklist. So on this checklist, we always tell people, look, first of all, if there's something missing here, we just need to know why. So we always start with the property address. We always start with what is everybody's legal names. And I say that, legal names. Why? Because at the end of the day, who's going to really need all this stuff? We need it and the title company needs it. And if these people's names don't match what's on the IDs, title insurance has questions, and we want to make sure we have everybody's real names, emails, mailing. We need this stuff. The death certificate. You can't even get going with probate without a death certificate. So when heirs are like, what do you need the death certificate for? We need it to get the probate going, and we need it so the title company can have it. There's a scene where there's John and Sally, husband and wife. John died before Sally. Sally's probate's got to be done. We do Sally's probate, got the death certificate for Sally, but what does the title company want? Now they want John's death certificate. There's all these little things that we need, because not only do we need it, but title needs it as well. Any will or trust, that's what we were covering before. If there's a will, we need to see it. We have to see what's going on. It will lay out who is getting what or what is getting what. This is where it gets interesting. Some of these deceased people are savvy and they got their estate planning done. And they lived in Massachusetts, they lived in New York, they lived in Connecticut, they lived in Kentucky. And when they did their estate plan, they not only did a will, but they also left in the will that it was going to a trust. And sometimes it says it's going to a trust. You're going to need the trust as well. So when you see these documents, it's going to help give you the most information so you get it to the right professional. Now, if we're in another state, this still can help. If you're in Georgia, if you're in Ohio, if you're in Texas, this still can help. It's not the be all everything, but it helps guide you. Title commitment, that is really important. I don't know if anybody knows what that is or has seen one, but it comes from the title company. It will be the document that tells you if we need to do probate or no probate. I love seeing it because it absolutely confirms what we need to go through. And sometimes the title commitment comes back and they say, no probate. We don't need to do this. But this is important. Purchase and sale contract. We need to see that all heirs have signed that purchase contract. Because what happens if Michael picks up a deal in Lehigh Acres, little lot, 5 heirs, he's only got 4. And we do the whole probate puts title in the 5. And right before the closing, number 5 says, I think I'm going to go to another investor that just emailed me that they want to pay me double the amount of money. What's Michael going to do? Let's be real. There are different creative things. He's been in the game a while, but on such a small lot, you're out on the deal. So it's so important that you get these things into place, get them and lock them in. I put the power of attorney there because you just never know, not the deceased power of attorney. Sometimes people are in prison, the heirs are in prison, they're overseas, they're incapacitated, and some of these heirs can't sign. We had a land lot, can't remember what county. The lady died, she had 4 kids, and one of those kids was alive but incapacitated. One of the other heirs was her power of attorney. So to get the deal done, we needed the power of attorney to make sure it was valid, and we had to send it to the title company. Why? Because even when probate's done, the title company is going to need a copy of that power of attorney so you can get the real estate transaction done. If that power of attorney is not approved by the underwriter, you got a totally different situation on your hands, and it may not even be worth the deal. And then, of course, we have to know if it's coming up for auction. Sometimes the heirs know. Sometimes you won't know. But the more we know, the better we can evaluate this. So if Michael got this checklist and he filled it out and he found a property in Lehigh and then he found out that it was up for tax deed auction, at least he knows, and at least we know what we're dealing with. So those are definitely some things that I think can help a lot of people when they get these deals and they're trying to overcome figuring this all out. Michael, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think to open up escrow with the title company, we're going to need all the signatures anyway, correct?
Debatable.
Okay, just trying to get the correct order in there. And I do have a copy of the questionnaire that we'll share with everyone in our group. And just trying to figure out the logistics. And the more information we gather, obviously, on that questionnaire, makes your job easier, that works better for all of us, correct?
Absolutely. That is definitely a golden checklist that can help a lot of investors. Now, to your point, in the beginning, are you going to get absolutely everything? Sure, you'll try, but it's not always going to be perfect. The idea is you are using it to truly gather the seriousness level of the deal, right? Need the title, need a copy of the contract. And if we find out that one person signed, but then we do the analysis on the console and I'm like, hey, Michael, there's 5 heirs. Well, at least, hey, we got to go back, get addendums, have the other 4 sign, and then we submit that back to the title company. At least you have your pieces in play versus not having anything. What you don't want to have is nothing and then think things are moving forward and they're not. I have a saying in my firm when I'm on a console, I'll say, all right, I'm ready to make a folder. If I'm ready to make a folder, that means that I'm ready to rock on this thing. If I say, I can't really make on this yet, that's because we are really missing some pieces in this pie that we got to get together.
When's a good time to walk away? Is it there are too many heirs to deal with? Sometimes it's going to be the financial ability to make a profit on it. But any other suggestions when you suggest that we walk?
I think so what some land investors miss is the ancillary items, environmental issues, wetland issues, endangered species, the endangered birds. You have to do a bird test. I heard about that recently, which is really interesting. The gator that's endangered. And a lot of people forget about the environmental things. So that could be a deal killer because you're not going to have a builder that's going to want to build on that lot, or maybe you won't be able to build at all. So due diligence in that respect. Of course, I'm sure you've talked about this with people. I've seen probates where found a great deal, but it's landlocked, right? And then there's easement issues. How do you navigate through that? Some other deal killers besides money, patience of the sellers and the time. Sometimes they really need the money fast and you're still missing heirs, or you're missing heirs. That could be another deal killer, right? Michael's got the property in Lehigh, but he's only got 4 out of the 5 and he can't find number 5 and the numbers are way too tight. There's so many different ones I can think of during the day. Of course, in the console, I'm thinking of all these, but the biggest one is we had a case one time. I know exactly where I was. I was at the Omni in Amelia Island in the parking lot. And this one lady had this probate case that she had to call me about. So I said, sure. I'm on the phone. I'm going through the whole analysis. We find out that it's layered. It was really layered. It was one probate, a second probate, a third probate, and then there was a 4th probate with 7 kids, right? Of course, it had to be like, that was the grand finale, 7 kids. So I said, no problem. We can do this. 7 kids, get everybody on board. Everybody signed, no problem. So we got all the paperwork together, ready to go. I texted the investor. I said, hey, we ready to rock and roll? Said, yep, ready to go. We filed all 4 probates simultaneously. The next day, the investor says, did you file the probates? We just found out there's an issue. And I was like, what do you mean? They found out that a corner of the lot was wet and that any builder that wanted to build, it was going to cost an additional $50,000 on that land. And so they said, we're out, we're done. So due diligence, it really pays.
Let's say they already filed probate, but probate has to be filed in the county where the property is located, correct?
So there's 2 ways this goes. It's either if they lived in the state of Florida, it's where they resided. So if they lived in Florida and they resided in Miami, but they had a lot in Marion County, we're doing it in Miami. If they lived in Massachusetts, but they had a lot in Escambia, it's done in Escambia. So that's the difference, is we're trying to navigate through a lot of those things.
Got it.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's great. If you can answer a few questions from everyone, and then at the end, you can share with everyone the Al Nicoletti show, and you do that on Wednesday nights.
Yes.
And share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm game to answer questions. I can talk about the show. We go live every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm even in the studio right now. You guys, actually, Michael, you guys get the first glance at the stickers we just put up on the wall. I got the sign here. We're in the studio right now. Thank you. We just bring on a lot of people in different industries that cover, whether it's land, whether it's single family, whether it's marketing. We had on a guy, Jerry Green, last night talking about sales. Just when you think you knew how to talk to sellers and navigate through those objections, and just when you think that you really have to follow a script, there's all these other ways that you could do this stuff where you have this organic programming of talking to sellers. And so that's the kind of guests we bring. We want to bring value to the whole community. We want to share with people what our knowledge is. We are not selling. We are not doing products. We're not doing any of that. We want to make sure everybody can succeed on their deals. And whatever it is, we're always changing it up. We're always throwing something new in there. So yeah, we go live. And the summer's we're gonna have a summer series, do a little bit more in-person studio because we haven't had an in-person yet. So we're gonna do some in-person, have a broker, a realtor, some big investors that are doing wholesales and listing property. So it'll be exciting.
Hey, Al, this is Brad. A few minutes late. I apologize. And if so, you covered this, then just say watch the replay. But I've never done any probate deals, but you indicated that the title company may say no probate is necessary. Can you give us examples of why that would be the case?
You mean when the title says there's no probate going to be needed for the property?
Yeah, yes.
So sometimes it could just be that there's John and Sally and their husband and wife, and they own the property together as husband and wife. John dies and Sally's alive. All you need to do is record the death certificate of John, and the title moves to Sally, and you're good to go.
Okay.
You have Michael and Vincent on title because they're brothers, and on the title it says as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. Vincent dies, you record the death certificate, title moves to Michael. So there's different ways. There's a lot of magic language that triggers the way the title flows. And so some of these title companies they get it. They understand where it's not needed. But like the one today, was really interesting. So a lot of time, what's happening, I think we're going to see a lot more of this too. What's happening is a lot of these people get to an age where they have one child that's managing everything for them, and then uses the power of attorney to then deed the property into themselves. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so we had this one today where she was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Where's the power of attorney? I was like, you can't use a power of attorney for your own self-interest to deed that property back to yourself. Underwriters don't like that. So they called for the probate of the lady that eventually died that did that POA. They wanted that probate. And then because of some other screwy thing that happened with her deed, they wanted the probate of her mom as well. You never know what direction this goes because it all falls down the title underwriting's title notes. There's a whole, so you know how there's Florida statutes? Then you have like different codes. Title insurance has their own book. They have their own code that's called title notes, and they refer to it. They base it off the Florida statutes, but really they base it off the risk analysis too of taking on insurance and taking on that liability.
So just a follow-on question to that, then I think most people here do business in more than one state and maybe more than one county within a state. So do you have to have an attorney license in that state if you need legal assistance with the case?
So you are going to want that because to get these things done the right way, these counties have more complicated procedures than you can imagine. Each county has different rules on submitting the process. Like in Brevard County is one of the most complicated counties to do probate in. And if it's not done correctly, down to the period and the way that the box is, they won't allow it. And so there are a lot of procedures. Now, I can tell you this, from what I've seen, is that a lot of people want this lawyer process because they don't want to have an issue going through this. I can't speak to other states, but for what I've seen, I can tell you that this is hands down why you need a lawyer to jump into these probate deals.
You mentioned county. Does that mean we need someone whose expertise is in Brevard, or is it a Florida attorney?
No, I know every county. I know exactly what's going on. Brevard, I've definitely overcome Brevard's issues. I know what the problems are there.
Okay.
No, one thing I've heard lately is this lady called me the other day. She had a property in West Florida, but she put off doing the probate a couple of years ago because when she first started going around to lawyers, the lawyer said, oh, I only do Sarasota. I only do this county. And I was like, what? My wheels are going off. The light bulb went off. And I was like, wait a second. We're all virtual now. We can do this in every county. It doesn't matter. So I've learned how to do it in every county. Doesn't matter where it is, whether it's Pensacola or whether it's in Lehigh, it doesn't matter. So you don't necessarily need that. Now, maybe some other states, like maybe Arizona or Texas, maybe they don't have virtual systems, and maybe you do need an attorney in that specific county or region.
Attorneys own up to that if you ask them specifically and say, hey, I'm in XYZ county. What is your expertise in that case?
Sure. Hopefully they do. If you ask me what my expertise was in Hillsborough County, I can tell you I've been doing probates there since 2018, 2019. But if you ask me Madison County, we just filed my first probate in Madison County. So I would tell you it's my first one in Madison County, but hopefully the other people would say, hey, yeah, we do it all the time, or we've never done one there.
I think one of the challenges that we found previously, the four potential heirs, they don't want to pay the taxes. They don't want to pay for the probate. I don't want to pay for the probate just for risk factors. How much does it cost, and how do people work with you? And is there a way that we can go ahead and fund you at the close of escrow? How does that work?
Yeah, so I saw Derek ask that question about getting paid at closing. Great question. So for starters, one of the biggest selling points that I'm able to bring to the table for investors is I will wait until the closing to get paid off the HUD, whether it's from the seller side or the buyer side. I tell people on the phone calls, I'm like, I don't care who pays. As long as I get paid off the HUD, I'm cool. You guys arrange however you want that to be. It doesn't matter. We wait until the closing. It doesn't matter if it's 4 probates or 1 probate. We're still waiting until the end. And that's huge. Because if I got on the call with Michael and I told him, hey man, like this is going to be 4 probates, and you're like, oh, 4 probates might be like $12, $13, $14,000. You don't have that money up front to do that, or you don't want to take the liability on that, and then the seller backs out, right? The fact that we're able to take that risk up front is huge. Now, in terms of how much, plain vanilla probate right now, 1, 2 heirs, no issues, everybody's holding hands. It's been like 3,500 range per probate. And people are always like, what do you mean the multiple probates? What's 4 probates? That's when we're doing that chain of this one died after, this one died after that one, and then we create this chain of probates. So then you add up the numbers. If they start getting a little bit more complicated, I go up. Brevard County is definitely a more expensive county because of all the crazy issues. You could be looking at 5,500 there just because of how much. I don't have gray hair yet, but eventually I will with that county. Maybe I do. I have to check. But I'd say certain counties like Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach are just going to be more expensive just because of the logistical issues that go on there. Maybe Okaloosa. No, was it Okaloosa? I think Okaloosa was a little different too. We had a case there and nobody responded. So we had to set a hearing on a 1 heir probate. It was nuts. But that's the biggest selling point, is waiting till the closing. I think it's a huge thing for people.
Maybe just to follow up a little bit, I did a mailing. It was just 200 letters, but I looked for properties that were in the estate of, and the mail was in care of. And so they just hit on Monday, and we've already made 4 offers on those. Finding those niches and marketing to them, because now I can provide a solution where I could not provide the solution before.
Absolutely. And you're offering an ability for them to get money that they never would have had the ability to. They probably didn't even know. Eventually, the property would go to the tax auction. There'd be a surplus, and they don't even know because it'll eventually go to Department of Unclaimed Property.
Al, I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. So why do you need, if you have multiple generations that are deceased, and then you have like I have a situation right now where the grandson, there's actually, I just found out yesterday, there's not just 1 grandson, there's 3 of them. Okay, they didn't all 3 sign my sales agreement, right? Thank you. And the neighbor wants to buy the property because otherwise it's not buildable, but someone's gonna buy it to put trucks on it. He doesn't want that, right? So anyway, why do you have to go through multiple levels you have to pay for each level of each generation probate, even though they're deceased? I don't understand. Is it the way the statute is written?
It's the way that the title flows. So let's start at the top. Let's just say back in 1980, grandma owned the property. No will, no spouse,
Right.
no surviving spouse, 1 child ever. That child dies after grandma. What happens is any interest grandma had technically goes to child's estate. So the title had technically moved to the estate. Now, if you would just leave that alone, let's just say you were like, we're going to leave it alone, go to the title company. What the title company does is updates grandma's probate to reflect now the child's title, but then they're going to find out the child died, and then they're going to trigger another probate right there. The title chain has to be clear. It's going from these people down to these people. They're
Yeah.
inheriting their estates.
You can't just do that in one document.
No.
Oh, that's insane. Wow. Is that the way most states are? We probably don't know, but this is not a Florida property. So another place. So.
Oh, so yeah. Wait, where are you?
I live in Virginia, but the property's in Washington.
Oh, see, I know a few lawyers in some other states. Got a great guy in Georgia, got a great guy in South Carolina, got a great guy in Illinois. That's another good one over there. But some states I wish I had. I have nobody in Washington and nobody in
Yeah.
Virginia.
Crazy.
But that's what happens is it starts going down this line. I keep getting triple probates, but in a triple probate where it was grandma, the child died after, the child had a surviving spouse who post-deceased the child, and then they had 2 kids. So it's bing, bing, down to the 2 kids. Triple probate. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Washington, you can do a lack of probate affidavit, but I don't know if that's going to help it. I don't know. I may have to back out. Just have the lawyer figure it out between the fire and the
Find a good lawyer. Find a good lawyer over there. And I saw somebody just dropped a question. Where can we find your list of lawyer contacts? I don't have a list. I only know of a handful of them. It depends on what state you're in, but I don't have everybody in every state. I wish. Long time ago, Michael, somebody told me, they were like, Al, you need to create a Rolodex and get some lawyers on that list. I'll give you the Georgia lawyer. That'll be a good one, just in case somebody has a probate over there. His name's David Sergio. Let's see if I can find it. If you want the number, I'll type it in the box for you.
Does he also charge on the back end?
I think so. And tell him I sent you.
So I think, as you mentioned, that the delinquent tax rolls, that would be a great source for leads. And as obviously there's a cost to these probates, maybe we can search the list by higher amount of delinquent taxes that typically have higher value properties. And that spread can really create a great opportunity.
Sure. It's the motivation behind it. As soon as they're tax delinquent, they're in a motivated state because either they have the ability to pay the back taxes or they don't. And if they don't, I mean, they're going to lose the property and they don't even know what's going to happen with it. Any other questions? Anybody else got something going on?
Hi, this is Erica. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. I have a situation where there's 3 property owners, but all 3 of them are deceased.
Okay.
So it's I believe it's a father, a mother, and a mother's sister who are all deceased. Now they have children who are still alive. They're all bickering. Some want to sign, some don't. How do you handle that situation?
That depends on your numbers, right?
Fine. It's a good enough spread. So one guy, he's willing and ready to sign, but after talking to some of the siblings, they don't want to go through the whole probate process. And then others, they don't. And then you have others who they don't want to sign at all.
I think it really comes down to what you want to do, right? There's some investors that want to buy this 100% and then get the builder to come in and snatch it up. On this one, it sounds like you're going to need 3 probates. I don't know what state you're in. What
It's
state?
Florida. It's in Florida.
Oh, okay. So you're going to need 3 probates for sure. Your next game plan, is it up for tax deed auction or back in taxes?
Yeah, it is up for tax.
How deep?
We're talking like next month is the tax deed auction.
Oh, next month?
Yeah.
You're out. I'll say this, and Michael, anybody else can chime in. I'd say if it was my deal, I'd be out if I don't have the participation of everybody. Because at the very most, you can, even if you did all 3 probates in time before the auction, at the very most, you could negotiate with the sellers that do want to sell and try to buy out their interest and then pay off the back taxes. But what a risk to pay off the back taxes to buy partial interests, only for you to still be in a pickle because you don't own 100%. And then what can you really do with the rest of the other people? Could you start negotiating with them? Would you have to wait till it goes to auction again? So that's tough.
Because it's the end of next month. So I'm thinking, oh gosh.
No. If you said everybody, yes.
Is it often easier just to go to buy it from the county after it forecloses?
Not necessarily, because you're also facing the rest of the world in buying that at auction. So if there's builders that want to buy it,
It's not a buildable lot. If it's not a buildable lot, it's good for trucks to sit on it, but you can't put a septic system in and there's no municipal water.
it's up to you what
Yeah.
you want to do with it, really. Do you want to go through that route? It's all a matter of, is it worth going through all of this to get the deal, or
I'm just trying to present the options to the neighbor. I don't want it. Neighbor's paying me, I'm paying the original guy, but
go for it?
it might be too much. I don't think I'll have any profit.
And I met Logan Fulmer through the Al Nicoletti show, and he says, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth the hassle?
You have to gauge it. Absolutely. Hey, Michael, I saw somebody said, hey, Al, I've been calling on probate lawyers in my area to see if they have clients that want to sell their property and how I can help. So far, I've been getting good responses. How can I add value to the lawyers who send me opportunities? Hey, if that's working, that's great. And you never know, you may find lawyers that have properties sitting like that are organic. We don't have that because we're always getting word of mouth, already under contract, ready to get going. But hey, send them cases back. There's always great value. If you find opportunities and you want to provide back, go for it. That's great. Looks like you're in Atlanta, Jermaine, but that's awesome if it's working.
We want to contact you. Is there a preferred method?
Yeah, you know what? Let me share that presentation, because what I'll do is I'll put up my QR code, which you can scan. Let's see where it is. You can scan this. All right, I'm going to put this right up on the screen, right there. So if you scan the QR code, you'll save my info. It's got my phone number, my email, and I highly recommend that if you're on Instagram, follow me now. It's attorney Nicoletti. Just hit the follow button, or find me on Facebook, find me on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. You'll find tons of videos, tons of info. People are finding me through social media. I've had people tell me they found me on YouTube. Michael, how did you end up finding me?
I have no idea.
That's crazy.
I would think it was probably through either Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's crazy. The power of social media, and there's tons of videos that people watch and share and stuff. So that's great. It's great community. But yeah, that's definitely the best way. Scan the QR code, you'll find it there. And yeah, I love it.
You've
I've
been
got
out.
a quick question. Hi, Al. Thanks for your time.
Hey.
I'm in Orlando in Winter Park.
Oh, cool.
Yes. Okay. So is there a strategy you might recommend if we come across a property or a deal that is going to go through probate? It's going to take a little time. Should we give them like a letter of intent with a probate checklist? Like, how often should we keep in touch with them through the process? Is there a way, if we know the land has value, to kind of have a plan for getting it to the end?
So give me like a really good context scenario. Like, what would be a scenario you're talking about?
You mentioned if there's a deal, there's multiple like heirs or probates to go through, and maybe they're not quite ready to sell. They have a lot of things to do. What's one that you want to keep your hand in a little bit?
Sure. You can, I don't think you follow up every week or every month. Best thing that you can do, I think, is you give them something to hold on to and say, hey, here's my pamphlet. If you ever decide to sell, keep it in your drawer. Keep it in. Some people keep the craziest things. Like this one person I remember I met at a investor meetup, kept my card and still had it 5 years later in their wallet. So people do the craziest things. And I think he showed it to me too. So give them something that they can remember and hold on to. And maybe check the property appraiser 6 months later, 3 months later, and see, did a deed transfer? Did they sell? Maybe they haven't done anything yet. And then maybe a year later, you never know, they haven't done anything. Reach out and say, hey, life changes. How much changes in a year? Life changes. Have any interest? And you're not bugging them. So just hold on to it. Here's the big thing. They ain't doing this without a specialist coming in to help them do it the right way. And I can tell you that my model has really helped sellers, because every lawyer that they have gone to wants the money up front, especially if you have 3 or 4 probates to do. They ain't going to do that without money up front. So at some point, by making that, hey, if we got to do probate, know that we'll take care of it, asterisk, right? Because you don't want to find out you're taking on the liability of 5 or 6 probates and then you're covering that. So just make a good memento for them.
I'll keep you in mind for referring on.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to it.
I find the best time to follow up, especially in Florida, is the first week in November because they just received the tax bill.
Golden nugget right there. I love that. We've seen that I get the most phone calls in late January, February. It was insane busy in February. And then March, it got really quiet because of spring break. But I think what happens too, and with a single family after the holidays, they're done. They're ready to offload. Yeah, I like that one, Michael. November 1st. I like that.
Oh, it's Erica again.
Hey.
You mentioned that it's good to send out mailers. What would be your suggestion as far as what to include in the letter? That way we don't appear to be insensitive when we're approaching the seller, and how we approach the seller after the death of the loved one.
Say on the letter part, so while I don't do what you all do with letters, I will say that I think what I've learned is the better way to say, hey, I came across your property in the property records. I'm interested in this area. We're buying, and there's a lot of you can come up with whatever language you want in terms of your interest level. I gloss over anything about the estate part or the deceased part. I would just say, it looks like you may be a potential heir to the property, and you may be somebody that may get an inheritance for this property, and I'm interested in speaking with you about it. I'm interested in your property as there's opportunities here, right? I wouldn't even include that other part. Now, in terms of time frame afterwards, what we learned is people got really ticked off when it was like 1 to 4 weeks after death. But some people seem to wait like 6 to 9 months. Seems to be like this spot of they're ready to move on. They're ready to offload. They're tired of paying the taxes. They're done. And now they're looking for somebody to help provide a solution, right? That goes back to the tax delinquent. They're totally over it. They're ready to move on, and they're done paying the back taxes. Some of these people have been paying taxes for years. They're just done. It's hard to say what that period of time is, but I would definitely say 2 to 3 months is probably still too soon. But is there ever a good time for that? It depends.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I believe Donna had asked, is your show recorded?
Oh, yeah. No, it's on YouTube. Well, not on iTunes and Spotify yet, but it's on YouTube and Facebook. You can catch it there. Loaded episode with Jerry. He had me on the hot seat last night. I was like, I didn't even know how to answer some of the questions. I was going all over the place.
I didn't catch the live show, but I'll catch the recording.
You'll find out that one thing I definitely learned is you don't talk about price from the very beginning. Don't talk about price.
Great information. I'm hoping everyone turns their cameras on and we can all just give you a high five. But
Thanks, Al.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
No,
you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very much.
And reach out. If you're in Florida, reach out, email me. Love to work with you on these probates, however I can help you and help Michael's community. Thank you guys. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Have a
Awesome.
good evening.
Thank you.